Hello everyone, thanks for taking the time to attend our presentation. This is a data story narrated through change over time. The audience are leaders of countries looking to achieve sustainability by reducing their global footprint while continuing to grow the economy and keep moving toward urbanization. Before moving forward, we want to confirm to the audience that this work is our own and not a copy from anyone else published or unpublished publication. It's submitted to you by Sylvester McCady, Fatima Savidra, Prakar Kakar, and Aruna Saxena. Let's start with a brief synopsis. Fossil fuels are the catalyzer of the Industrial Revolution. For centuries, they were the only source of energy and were used intensively during the Industrial Revolution across the planet. During the Industrial Revolution and even after, mankind knew very less about global warming, CO2 emission, and the key factor at the origin of that. When we began experiencing pollution and its effect on the global population health, only then we started to lean toward global environmental sustainability. The main question in our data story is the result of a well-thought analysis of the data we received for this assignment. It's stated as follows: can a thriving economy coexist with a healthy planet? Through this presentation, we will use our data story through the process of change over time to demonstrate whether or not a correlation exists between a healthy and environmental sustainable planet and a thriving economy. We will compare changes on some variable over the period of 10 years, starting from the year 2000 to 2010. Our healthy planet indicator will be the CO2 emission variable, and the thriving economy will be demonstrated through the comparison of outputs such as GDP, urbanization, and economic growth. Our area of focus will be Asia, and there we will compare data from top three energy consuming countries that are China, India, and Japan. Our first chart set the tone in our data story by helping us answer the question to where the CO2 emissions stand in urban area in the three countries. We can notice in both China and India significant increase of the CO2 emission over the time from 2000 to 2010. Japan, however, does not show a real noticeable increase in CO2 emission. We continue our story on the second chart by giving an answer to the relationship between urbanization and economic growth over the same decade. We noticing the increase in GDP for all three countries, but most noticeable is China, who went from below average to be the highest GDP of all Asia. Let's keep an eye on Japan change. From now, we can see that just like in the previous chart, the growth percentage is unnoticeable and very low. Our third chart brings clarity to our story by showing a relationship between the economic growth and the CO2 emission. We are noticing two different changes over the decade, both going to the opposite direction. The CO2 emission in all three countries is decreasing when the economic growth increases, demonstrating once again a correlation between the two variables that are CO2 emission and GDP. When reviewing this result and those from the second chart, we can see a correlation between the CO2 emission, urbanization, and the GDP that we will discuss at the conclusion. Our fourth chart shed light in the particular case of Japan, where we notice the following correlation over the decade: the decline in the working population, an increase in the aging population, and a very low increase in the GDP and urban population. All this together led us to believe that the aging population consume less energy, and may have moved to rural and suburban areas to live an environmentally sustainable lifestyle. Finally, the dashboard focuses on the relationship between the CO2 emission and GDP in our three major energy-consuming Asian countries. Here we can clearly see once again a positive change on CO2 emission explained by a significant decrease of CO2 emission over the 10-year period, followed by a significant GDP increase, synonym of a thriving economy. This shows a positive correlation between the GDP increase and the CO2 emission decrease. At the conclusion of our data story, for the answer to our data story title, we can say without any doubt, based on the data we have on hand and the change that we have noticed over the decade from 2000 to 2010, that we can have a thriving economy in a healthy planet with a reduced carbon footprint. Our recommendations here are as follows. Encourage global environmental sustainability. Focus on economic programs that will help reduce the CO2 emission over the time. Encourage urban population to move in suburban or rural areas by promoting remote work. Encourage non-working population and aging population to move to suburban and rural areas. Study the case of Japan and customize it to each country. Thanks for your attention. Please feel free to ask any question. Goodbye.